Welcome and good afternoon. I'm Andrea Kaufman and proud to be a part of Prudential's Impact Investing team. I'm excited to introduce today's keynote speaker, Wes Moore. I got to know Wes several years ago when Prudential was considering an investment in the company he founded, and I was intrigued by the business. But what hooked me was this entrepreneur's passion and vision, his desire to do good. I knew at the first meeting, whatever Wes pursued, he was going to make a difference in the world. Wes was raised in the Bronx and Baltimore by a single mother, and his accomplishments are many. Phi Beta Kappa from the Johns Hopkins University, Rhodes Scholar, paratrooper, New York Times best-selling author, and now CEO of the Robin Hood Foundation, one of the largest anti-poverty forces in the nation. Incredible, right? We invited Wes here today because we believe he embodies the spirit of the future of capitalism. His journey represents the potential for economic mobility fused with a moral imperative to do good. Please welcome Wes Moore.
Good afternoon. Andrea, thank you so much for the introduction, for your friendship, and for your leadership. You, the entire team from Prudential, have just been unbelievably supportive of everything we've been involved in, so thank you. And to the Aspen Institute for your leadership in making this happen. I mean, to get a room like this, a room of social entrepreneurs, a room of foundation execs, a room of people who are in the financial industry and people who are on the ground, actively focusing on an issue that frankly should be keeping all of us up right now. And that's the fact that we need to have a very sincere discussion about the disconnect. And that the disconnect is real. The fact that how do we have a structure in a society right now where we know that two polar worlds are moving forward at the same time, yet those two polar worlds are in natural conflict. The reality that we can have indicators that point towards the fact that we can have a 3.7 or 3.6% unemployment rate. But we also know that the vast majority of people who are the ones living in poverty in our society are the working poor. People who are working not just one, but in many cases, multiple jobs. The fact that we can have growing GDP and the fact that we can be in the process of a large and expensive bull market, but at the same time, I know with our work at Robin Hood and the partnership we have with Columbia University, where we have something called the Poverty Tracker. And the Poverty Tracker, in fact, just last week, the data showed us that 50% of all people, all New Yorkers, over the past 4 years have been in poverty for at least a year. 50%. Not half of a borough, not half of a jurisdiction, not half of a demographic group. Half of the city. We're here to have a conversation and a discussion about the disconnect. And the disconnect that while these two things move together right now, it's not only unsustainable, it's immoral. How we are not having a more inclusive conversation when we're talking about the wealthiest country at the wealthiest time of our nation's, of the world's history. You know, I think about it in context of my hometown, which is the city of Baltimore. And in fact, in the spring, I have a book project that'll be coming out where we talk about, it's called 5 Days, and we talk about 5 days in the life of Baltimore, and all hovering around the uprising and the unrest that took place around the death of Freddie Gray. A 25-year-old young man who made eye contact with police. He was arrested. An hour after he was arrested, he was in a coma. A week after he was in a coma, he died. And I remember having a conversation with someone who's actually a minister down in Baltimore. And we were talking about policing and police accountability and that type of thing. And he asked me to do something. He said, Wes, he said, do me a favor. He said, next time you get in front of a computer, go to YouTube. And he said, and go to YouTube and look up Freddie Gray's arrest. And I told him, I said, listen, I've seen that video 100 times because it's all over the internet. I said, I don't need to see it again. And he said, I understand your point. He said, listen to me. Next time you get in front of a computer, go to YouTube and look up Freddie Gray's arrest. But I ask you to do this. Next time you look at his arrest, don't look at Freddie. And don't even look at the officers. Look at everything else. Look at the neighborhood that video was shot in. Look at the homes in the background. Look at the fact that that video was taken at around 9:11 in the morning, and how many people are just standing around. His larger point was, we cannot mourn the micro if we're not willing to do something about the macro. His larger point was this: in order for us to have a real conversation about the future of our society, we need to delve deeply into many of the topics we're going to go over today. Topics such as, are the indicators that we are looking at right now that show our economic health, are they really telling the true story? And are these the indicators that we should actually be thinking about and trumpeting? Because the things that we measure are the things that matter, and the things that matter are actually the things that should be measured. Topics like, how are we making sure that the community is as involved in the conversation, and that they are part of the conversation and not just subjects of the conversation? That in many cases, the solutions we are looking for already exist in the communities that we are trying to serve. And our job is to be able to share that autonomy and share that power and to listen. Deep conversations like understanding how all of our industries, every single one of us, those in philanthropy, those in the financial sector, those who are based in doing the CBO work, those in government, how we all have to be honest about our own levels of complicity in this. That there's not one group nor one area that's been responsible for the functional breakdown in the lives of so many of our neighbors. The fact is, we have a fundamental breakdown that has existed in the lives of so many of our citizens and in so many of our communities, and the only way to address a fundamental breakdown is a fundamental build-up. Knowing that there's not going to be one group nor one person that's going to move us out of this, but that we all have a collective responsibility to play our part and to play our role. And to take everything that we've been doing now and not just do it better, but to fundamentally ask the question, what else? What else can we push? What else can we stress? What other partnerships can we create? Because the future of everything that we hold true, the future of every single hope and dynamic that this country and its documents have promised to offer to all people, the truth is we have been amazingly miserly and arbitrary as to how those blessings are allocated. Our moment now, our time now, and the data is screaming at us to address it, means that while we might not be responsible because of the seats that we sit in for where we are right now, if we continue to have this as a challenge, if we continue to have this as a problem, if future generations are dealing with the dynamics of the disconnect that we will discuss today, that is on us. That's our cross to bear. Because the reality is each one of us now sit in seats to actually do something about it. And to make sure that these things that are conversations become action plans. And those action plans become movements. So I'm incredibly thankful for the time today, but more importantly, incredibly excited for the action tomorrow. Bless you guys, and thank you so much.